Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Traveling Molly's August 2025. We've got a great lineup tonight. Here with my host, Nina Corwin.
Hey
As
y'all.
always, there's Nina. We have five features tonight. Usually we have two. Tonight we're featuring Virginia Bell, Ricki Cummings, Terry Lucas, Patrick Reardon, and Judith Valente, as long as a, a really strong open mic. So we hope you all enjoy. Nina?
Yeah, so five features does not mean that you'll be here all night. We're just going to keep the poetry coming. Our features are people who've been around Molly's for a long time and have a book out recently. And we've got some new faces in the open mic. So it's gonna be the evening is gonna be full of old and new. And I'm gonna get us going by introducing Al. We usually read a poem to get things rolling. We've got a lot of poets here, so I'm gonna pass the mic, as it were, to Al DeGenova. Let's hear what you got.
Okay, thanks, Nina. When we did this in the real world instead of the virtual world, it was always Nina and my thought that nobody else had to be first to the mic. So I'm first to the mic tonight. I'm going to read a poem that just today was accepted for Verse Daily. So um, I'll read this for you. It's a high bun, so it ends with a haiku. I'll read the haiku twice. It's called Once Upon a Best Time. Walking out of Club Eldona, 44th and Western Avenue, just chugged 50-cent beers from highball glasses. Eldona, a Lithuanian grandma, treats us like her own and says, "Be good, boys." Tonight we are lusting for the Gorgonzola girls of Bridgeport. We head east on 35th Street. Pete drives, Sandy and me in the back seat. She giggles. She says, "See you later, baby." Back at Eldona's, chrome and black choppers line the sidewalk. We play pool with tattooed, long-haired, bearded bikers who call us cigar-smoking kids. We bet beers and lose with a laugh. It is summer in Chicago. We are almost high school graduates. We sweat, we talk, plan grand tours of Europe. We've been friends since first grade recess. Oh, tonight feels like a celebration. Tonight his blue chalk on black denim jacket. Tonight is cold beer and the hard crack of the cue ball as it slams into the eight. The dull thud of the pocket and our long roll along unseen tracks. West heading interstate, a handshake. The door slams shut. West heading interstate, a handshake. The door slams shut. So thank you. Thank you. Um, so we'll start out the open mic tonight. We've got some new voices to hear. Let's start with Scott Delgarno.
Lovely. Glad to be here. This is out from Moonpath Press. Next month, actually. It's not even been launched. So I'm reading from it to start. I want to read a little bit of Young Love and then move to Old Love. First poem, Sacred Heart. I was slow awaking to so many things. My mother's neurosis, the Soviet threat, God's silence. In Miss Chastain's fifth grade classroom, you said nothing. Just unhooked the oval charm from your gosling neck and put it into my hands. The look in your black eyes made holes in me I have yet to fill. Sitting on your porch under the large plywood hand advertising your mother's skill reading tarot and palms was all I needed to know of bliss to keep a white-knuckled grip on breathing. Holding your hand, watching as you tucked your tawny feet up under the crimson fringe of your skirt, I would have been content never to rise again. But that summer you moved. I only knew because a podiatrist opened an office in your home, the hand above the door replaced by a swinging foot, your room become a doctor's surgery. Word came today that poor Jesus likely died of a blood clot breaking loose from his mangled hands or feet, stopping his heart. What long haul air travelers get if they fail to stand and walk about. Pulmonary embolism. Odd to think of Jesus dying of something so pedestrian, so long ago, and yet how palpable the memory of my empty hand, your retreating feet, the ache that makes my later catastrophes pale. Little of the old love. This is called Largo. It used to be called MacGuffin because there's a Hitchcock reference. There's your alto on your voicemail. You're dead and sounding quite fine. Well, everything overlaps. Everything bleeds into everything else. Physics and mathematics, chemistry and biology, Bonnie and Clyde. What's life anyway but a short stay in a quirky motel? Still, they say it takes on average 8 times longer to accomplish anything than you expect. I learned today that Ullage is slang for the measure of lack in a wine glass. And I think of you and me and all we discovered together, and I let myself entertain the thought just for a moment that we will never see each other again. Oh, I know, even if we got together now, it would be different, you being, dead. That's the problem with grief. Just when I'm sure it's past, like you, go on, say it, forever. Here it comes again, like Tony Perkins in Drag. That old Hitchcock staccato stabbing holes in the curtain of my resignation, every bit as persistent as this pulsing desire that prompts me to keep punching your empty number. And now a short one, late mercies. Between Dead Stop Coffee, I'm in Portland, and your cancer scare, we dodged the rain ducking into your bungalow. Your hair smells of lavender and heartbreak. I smile, trying to hide my fear of your history, but the care you take with small things disarms me. Thank you, second cousins, the single candle by your bed. You unclasp your bra, and I come undone. Unbuttoning my shirt, you confess to thinking you'd never have a lover again. Unwilling to be as vulnerable, I lean back and take you in. Your voice so vital. I fantasize the two of us together long ago, but you remind me that without our exes and grown children, we'd never have gotten lost in the same place. You reach deep into me and pull out a dark bird I didn't know was there. Your eyes dip, asking my permission to release it. I watch you, watch it out of sight.
Wow. I hope we'll see you here again in the future.
Thank you.
Nice work. Susanna, how about you? Susanna Lane.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm going to read a couple of hybrid pieces. I'm hoping they're zuizitsu in the way that Kumiko Han defines that. They've been accepted for an anthology coming out next year, but we're not supposed to announce it yet, so I'm not going to tell you anything more. I live in France for part of the year, and this first one is set in Uzes, where I live. Migrants. There, by the side of the road, that rolling gate. A bear? Yes, a bear. We had turned off our usual route, following a sign that pointed towards our town. Chemin du Mas de Justice, no wider than our car, road of the House of Justice. Our headlights glowed white on the bear's fur against black trees like a negative. There have been no sightings of bears reported in this part of France. We haven't reported this one either. Our friend laughed at our story. You'd had dinner, right? With wine? Near our friend's house, a new sign. Migration amphibien, amphibian migration. The newts returned when the lake returned after the spring rains. How did they know where to come? Last year's census in the Pyrenees, 83 bears and 16 cubs. The shepherds who pasture their sheep in the high meadows are afraid. They come to the public meetings. They want permission to use their guns. There have been shepherds and sheep in these mountains for centuries, but bears for longer. The Pyrenees are more than 500 kilometers from our town. The Chemin du Mas de Justice curves back to the main road. We saw the bear nearly at the end, not far from the town's center, where windows were dark, everyone asleep. He appeared for a moment, then vanished among the trees, not full grown, an adolescent looking for a place where he could live. And then this one is from here in Chicago, rereading Yeats after a walk by the river, and it begins with an epigraph from Yeats' poem, The Stairs Nest by My Window. We are closed in, and the key is turned on our uncertainty. Oh, honeybees, come build in the empty house of the stair. Back home, I baste the chicken. You clean the fennel bulbs, cut them in wedges. I tell you about the bird I followed up the river path, its gray-blue wings. Kingfisher chuckled from a crooked branch, feathers drenched in winter sky. While we talk, a woman is flown in shackles in a military plane to the country she'd left, where someone waits with a gun. Another woman is about to give birth, her husband prevented from leaving the refugee camp where she'd married him. Somewhere a man is killed or a house burned, yet no clear fact to be discerned. Once, and then every morning, my students ran across the playground calling, Maestre, Maestre. Do children run in the schoolyard this morning, or have their mothers kept them home? Once, and now every day, my grandmother's worst memories rise from the dead and walk down the street, whistling an old tune. Do you recognize it? Evening, the kitchen smells of chicken and fennel. We sit together to eat. We do not think to light the candles. Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Susanna. Very nice. Okay, next up, John Simmons. How you doing this month?
Hi, thank you. Thank you, Al. And hi, Nina and Bill and everybody. Happy to be here. We've had some hot weather, really hot weather out here. And but it's been sunny. So things are going well. Well, thank you. As you know, I celebrated the big 9-0 on July 4th. So pardon me for giving myself a plug on that. Knocking on wood. Hope there are many more. Okay, so here's the poem. It's called What's Going On? The spirit of the land has risen to confront us as dust pluming up from the dirt swirls in our midst, reshaping human reflection. The water flows upon us with reminding force that it controls the edge of shores, no matter dams or culverts or the metrics of the weather channel. Fire finds a natural nesting place to grow its embryonic sparks without restraint among our drying fields and woods, burning lives, homes, and futures beyond the reach of water lines until the flames have charred their course. Wind and soil, water and fire are reclaiming the pulse of the earth, taking control of direction from those who've lost the way. Facing down the power, the paper, the plans, the planet reasserts its solar purpose, prompting us to learn its mission and our footing in nature's new regime. The spirit of the land exceeds the sum of its disaster losses as the drive to improve pushes the lives of the heart to survive and the mind to prevail. Some good instincts still work, while others hang tight, palms pressed in prayer, awaiting an eruptive force, replenishing reason in a glide pattern wave, a tsunami of soul, bringing sense to our senses. Thank you.
That's Hawaii heard from, and now we've got Asheville. John and Kate, you ready?
I'm ready. John, happy birthday. 9-0 is unreal. It's not every day you get to meet somebody with that number. So congratulations. Great poem. A quick background before I read this poem. Don't know why I'm gonna read this one. Sometimes you get a gut sense. I was homeschooled for a large part of my childhood. When you're homeschooled, you kind of have a reputation. Homeschool kids kind of do weird stuff. And it's true, you do weird things like own tarantulas for pets, which is what we did. And we were really, really into it. And if you know anything about tarantulas, you know that they grow from the inside and then they have these moments where they have to molt and they have to shed their outer skin. And it's kind of a dramatic act, right? They lay on their back. A lot of people probably think it's totally disgusting, but for a homeschooled kid in North Carolina, it is maybe the coolest thing that could ever happen to you when your tarantula molts. And I was thinking about that recently, and it took on larger meaning for me. And so I'm going to read this poem that's called Molting or the Tarantula. Molting or the Tarantula. It must be how prophets feel when they got to prophesy. Divine pressure, right? Caps lock, but no letters, an unsaid, do this or die. All at once it became too much. I was being crushed. My heart felt huge inside me, and the armor I'd built myself bore down a horrific claustrophobia, an undeniable sense that who I wasn't enough anymore. I'll lie down on my back, I thought, though I never do that. I'll just lie down and let it pass. It'll pass. But when I did, a dark gossamer swept the world, and I slept like I was dead. And then sounds. Like glacial separation in a massive sheet of black ice, searing pain, and in each of my 8 eyes, a sudden fissure of white vaginal fire. Can you imagine? 8 fissures of white vaginal fire and agony, pain so bad I screamed for Christ. Those excruciating lights. They came at me like scythes, and no sooner had they started cutting me apart than I found the pain was pleasure and had been all along. Airlocks at every joint hissed, tickled, gave way, and I heard my own voice say now. And kicking free, I ditched the mold and emerged a wholly new creation. I am so soft I could be eaten. I could be eaten by a baby. I'm so soft. My skin practically translucent, the dusting of rose hair over my abdomen like the blushing June strawberry moon, and even my fangs are pink, too tender to kill a thing. And this gland of silk inside me, what is it? It is the word of God, and it glistens between my spinnerets, and my thoughts now are radiant now, and race and run like a million rivulets to one coursing hope, one feeling I know. Yes, I know this one. It is hunger. I'm hungry. So glad to be here, guys. Thank you.
Al, before you introduce the next person, I want to say that this is the first time I've heard gossamer used in a poem that was not cringeable.
That's huge. Because I worry about it every single time I read the poem. So it passed a huge test tonight. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Johnny. That was a great poem. Who shall we have next? Dawn McGuire. Welcome to Traveling Mollies.
Thank you so much. What a fabulous group. And thank you, Terry, for letting me know about this. And thank you all for inviting me to read. I'm going to read an old poem from one of my early books and then a brand new poem. Speck. That March, my father told me that they found the speck at the beginning of the universe. He didn't call me up with the news. He wanted to tell me in person. The scientists found that speck, he said, and it proves about God. This last he added casually, his daughter being a skeptical scientist type. But I could tell he was satisfied, no less than if the Nobel Prize Committee came to Carter County and said, Eamon, you were right all along, sir. That dusk, between the Farmer's Hardware and the Dollar Mart and west of Venus, I stopped the car. I knew he couldn't tell Hale-Bop's wheel and flare from a commuter craft, but I handed him his cane. His rheumy eyes, the color of a Bassett's haw, cataracts, everything was haloed anyway. I told him this one would come back in 3,000 years. These are some times, he said, tracking the DC-9 over Ashland. He was happy, I was happy. Whatever had happened, whatever conditions had concealed the place of understanding, the last of the family crystal smashed. We stood now, aligned at the shoulder, somebody's daughter, somebody's son. The night sky lightened a little before night, as if a kindred she-force let down her milk, and we each let the other drink first. I'm going to have to turn a little bit out of the sun. I'm sorry. Let's see. I think maybe I'm having such a trouble here finding. No, here we go. Okay. Let's give it one more try. Okay. This is called Effusion. It's kind of hot off the press. The orthopedist enters like he's headlining Coachella, clipboard swinging, white coat billowing like a savior cape. He doesn't say hello, he just asks, so what did you do to it? Like pain is a thing you cheat with on the weekends. You want to say, what didn't I do? I climbed the stairs of my own ruin. I carried grief like groceries, bag leaking, too proud to ask. But instead you point to your knee like it's a dog that bit somebody at a barbecue. He makes that face, you know the one, like your cartilage is personally disappointing him. Your joint degeneration is a moral failure. He starts pressing and your knee barks in your face. Ow, you say, because bastard seems unprofessional. He says, it's probably your age. Now your birth year is a confession, as if you haven't watched this body rig itself together for decades with denial and drugstore cream. He shrugs and says surgery like he's tossing you a sport for your sad little salad. You nod, but you don't trust scalpels unless they're cutting fat from a stanza or tension from a holiday ham. He leaves before you can ask if he's ever read Lorca, or buried his father, or spent an hour staring at a knee that used to run towards things. You limp out of the office past the motivational poster with Mount Fuji, the word perseverance, thinking about how no one talks about that soft click your body sometimes makes when it invites you to give up quietly. In the car, you rest your hand on your knee like it's your hypervigilant dog and say, you did good. You can stop now. 2, they hand you the MRI as if you're supposed to read it, as if this isn't your first time seeing a mugshot of your skeleton. You hold it up to the light. Your fingerprints smudge the bones and the not bones where the cartilage is supposed to be, except there's not much not bones. Bone on bone, your knee says. It says, we've seen some shit, huh, pal? Every flight of stairs, every failed flirtation with hot yoga, every time you knelt to scrub a floor and woke up with an effusion, or genuflected when you thought maybe turning Catholic was worth a try, or the 10,000 times you picked up something that wasn't worth it. The text says, wow, that's some badness. You're looking at your body gossip behind your back, your femurs ratting you out, how you didn't take better care of this vessel you were issued. You nod at the tech like you understand, but the flimsy film bends in your hand and what you see is an aerial view of Bridgewater, maybe a moonscape, bright rills, black voids. Where's the lunar module? Ow, is that the American flag? Is that part the pain you want to ask? You want him to point to it, circle it with a Sharpie. You want him to give it a name so you can write it a letter. Say you're sorry for pretending it wasn't there, or there just to carry your water. The doctor talked about wear and tear like you're a pair of Levi's, as if standing upright past the age of 40 isn't really in the human blueprint, as if the problem isn't the weight of the world and the fact that you thought you could bear it. The tech slides the scan into a folder. You get to take it home. You think about hanging it on the fridge next to the postcard from your ex and the receipt for a massage you canceled because pain makes you feel frugal and yet weirdly alive. Thank you.
All right there. All right then. Dawn, come on back. Just follow us. And to anybody, follow us on Facebook. It's Traveling Mollies and a whole lot of other words. And if you like us, you are more likely to get our posts. We ask people if they want to be on the open mic to toss their names in the hats, and we'll let the people who are chosen know. And we'll have a night like tonight. How about Chris Stewart?
Thank you, Nina. When you live where I live in East Central Illinois, you think a lot about agriculture. You're surrounded by it, and you're compelled to learn about it. And sometimes what you learn, well, that's what this piece is about, and it's called Yield. 10,000 years ago, as the forebears of Sumer and Assyria began cultivating barley and wheat on the Euphrates Delta, the Wisconsin Glacier peeled back from shallow valleys that would become the farmland of central Illinois, grinding boulders into a fecund oleo of gravel, silt, and clay for the prairie grasses that followed, with roots gilded in nutrients, burrowing deep into the loam, gifting the ground with some of the richest soil on the planet. The farmers of Piatt County rewrap the present each spring with monocrops bound for ethanol refineries, livestock feed, and food additives. Sweep injectors pierce the earth with synthetic nitrogen that pools in subsurface PVC tile trenches on its unbending journey to the watersheds nursing the Mississippi, birthing algae blooms and city-sized sargassum clusters that snuff the coral lungs of the Caribbean Sea. Meanwhile, on a faded billboard on a farm road outside of Tuscola, a fertilizer company proclaims yields for a new millennium. Autumn announces. Combines rake the fields to a brittle stover. Drones hiss in the October air, dusting dicamba over the bald rows, and the land groans towards an uneasy sleep, fevered in dark progress, chemical dreams, history's harvest. Thank you. And thinking about the environment, but more specifically proximity. We're all thinking about the environment, and I'm begun to think a lot more about the proximity to where I am in sort of the topography of the world, and observing things there, and doing what we do as poets, bearing witness. And this is we recently returned from northern Michigan, and this is called In Northern Michigan. Sallow haze, tinted with struggling sunlight, shrouds the shorelines of Lake Michigan in the long weeks of July. Ash crawls in on the lake tide, smearing flaxen beaches with charred filigree of spruce and jack pine from the scorched forests of Manitoba and northern Ontario. The horizon is a flinty monochrome of swallowing sky, a smothering closeness, and the pine-ridged rims of the North Islands lurking, spectral shapes in the leaden brume. Each year, the burning season bores deeper into summer, so that the August air is mottled with particulates as far south as St. Louis. We are told this is the new normal, as if the old normal was ushered away in a dark dream from which we woke, unready, fitful, hopelessly unbelieving. On the way home, off US 31 north of Petoskey, we pass a small church with a roadside marquee sign boasting a passage from John. Something about a savior to wash away the sins of the world. Thank you.
Wow. Good to see you, Christopher. Let's see. Who shall we have next? Bill Blazek. We haven't called you yet, have we? I think you're still muted. Bill, you're muted. You're muted.
There, can you
There
hear
you
me?
go. Yep, there you go.
All right, thank you. So the first poem is called The Crow. Dressed in coat and tails, hands behind your back, you'd be a dignified host, but for your mortuary demeanor and taste in carrion hors d'oeuvres. We admire birds for plume and song. Shun your kind, especially after Poe's raptor came rapping, tapping, saying nevermore. You peck and tear at roadkill, dodge and dart cars, scavenge garbage. From eaves your gargoyle form hops, yaws, caws, scans, flaps, wheels away with your noisy flock. We humans love our symbols, especially for the macabre. Once we've made you scapegoat lightning rod for what we most fear, we can go on forgetting. Feathered omnivore, I know scarecrows and backyard birders reject you, but would you flutter a shutter at least one house over?
Bill, are you going to read us the second poem, or are you done?
No, I'm having trouble finding it. I had it all lined out. Let me see here. I hadn't prepared this, but I'll read it. Okay, this is called Night Skiing, and it's about it's taken from an experience I had when I was a boy growing up in Cleveland. So it's called Night Skiing. Behind a snowdrift, Bobby and a friend light up. Stomp feet, whoosh out drags. You know how you can tell smoke from breath? Smoke lasts longer. Tires crunch to a stop. Throwing down fags, the pair crouches, dives for the bumper. Clutch pops, hands grip, boots set, and the boys slide along like cargo sleds. The next plowed, salted cross street demands the boys run, clinging onto the bumper. After the intersection, they plop back to ski. The driver, alerted, pumps his brake, gets out of the car, the boys jumping to the curb. "What the hell are you doing?" the driver shouts. "Your parents know about this?" He slams shut the door, mumbles, "Damn kids, get themselves killed." Tires spin, traction sets, the two dart for the bumper, unwilling to look panty-waist. Bobby says, "He can't catch us if we scatter like dogs." Walking home, flurries loop like white flies. Snow emits bluish light. Branches bow in ice, click in the frigid night. In his turned-in neighborhood, porch lights soften December darkness. Windows frame wreaths of mist from warm insides. Bumpers etched in his hands. Bobby wonders what it might be like to belong there. Do I have time for one more?
Probably not. We've got a full
Okay,
house. Thanks for asking too.
not a problem.
So thanks for sharing. I want to go to one of our regulars, Robbie Nestor. Where would we be without you?
Without me. This is a poem that was picked up recently by Sheila Nogig. I'm not sure when it's going to be published. It's called Trees. I admire their commitment to community. They aren't like us, beings who construct a wall, form groups or tribes, mostly to kill or shut each other out. We are capable of traveling long distances, craving only what is new. We struggle to imagine each other's thoughts or feelings, eschew differences, while trees are connected at the root, know each other thoroughly, give freely to their neighbors across species, act as one. Tree solipsism's not a thing. Even if an old oak grows alone, secluded on a hill, the others lopped off long ago with buzz saws and axes, I imagine that the oak can empathize with all the blades of grass around it, squirrels and birds nesting in its branches, saplings sprouted from the acorns it has dropped. I like to think it loves its leaves, but embraces their bright demise in fall, even the lightning bolt that hollows out its core. By human standards, the tree's a philosopher, even a saint, model for inhabiting the earth. And I can give you another one. Crow or octopus?
Definitely octopus.
Okay. Sapiens. Solitary octopuses, tasting their world with all 8 arms, scrutinize in ways we do not understand. Their eyes are not like ours, without color receptors. For this reason, we think they should be colorblind. Yet somehow, octopuses sense both color and texture through their skin, disguise themselves as gray stretches of seafloor, stumps of dead coral, algae speckled rocks, employ their large brains to strategize. They adapt. Our motive is control. When we whittle the moon down to a sliver, kill all the bees, we may learn this planet's seat of wisdom has always been the sea. Thanks.
Thanks, Robbie. Let's see. We have 2 left in the open mic. Pablo Atavalo, another one of our regulars. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Thank you. I have 3 short ones for you. The first one's written through Echoes of Frost. Before we were the land. My brother says you can't eat poetry as his worn boot presses the shovel's edge into the dry earth. He digs out the stump of an American oak whose roots are broad but shallow. Look at the birds in the trees, how they sing without worry. My brother sighs. He knows they are songs of hunger. The last stay last, and the dead stay dead. The buzzsaw snarled and rattled in the yard under a silent God. Tomorrow in chains, sold for a mark in your hand of a cross, and still show up to work. The shovel's edge, the dry earth. We drown in different seas, restless. His worries pour out like water. Thank you. This is the root of all evil. The moon, a glowing ember, red hot scythe, cutting into the dark horizon, dying in the west, a solemn funeral. The night sky, a pitch forest where all we saw was the moon burn. War, Old English war, Old North French wer, Old French guerre, Frankish wera, fight, Old Saxon waren, to battle, Old German weren, to confuse, to sow confusion. This is a God's eye view. The overhead shot, the scene as seen from the sky, in books when they used to read books, and the voice went from room to ocean, from birds to drones. A child chases after a water truck, a bucket in hand. The dust kicks up, the boy in brown cloth running, the water truck not slowing down. And God sees it as you see it, from a drone armed to target that child, the overhead shot. Thank you.
Pablo never minces his words. So before I ask Caroline to read, I just want to tell people that we like to pay our poets. Some of you have heard me say that ad nauseum, but it's very important. So we have these 5 features coming up. They all have books to share, and we will drop the links in the chat to either their websites or way to get the book. But also we like to pass the hat, and in this case, it's a virtual hat. We have a link that's going to be going into the chat now, if it hasn't already, that will take you to Al's After Hours website, where you can make a donation to on PayPal, and we'll be dividing that money up between the features, which may not be very much tonight. So, but do and buy their books. So all of that leads us up into the last reader in the open mic, Caroline Wellman. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Nina. Hi, Al. Hi, Bill. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. This was inspired by the image of a star map of the Pawnee Indians on what is now a 300-year-old piece of leather. Beautiful piece of work. This is called After You Map the New Stars. Give yourself time to acclimate to how the skies have opened, how unfamiliar seas have sprung up. The shifting constellations of loss will require different ways of seeing. Now that the ones you love are light years away, your breath becomes a sextant, mirroring theirs, mapping their distance from horizon and moon, their brightness and altitude guiding you as you navigate this new world. And this one is kind of related. I've been thinking about a couple of things that keep coming up in my poems and was hoping that I could find a way to pull them together. And then a few weeks ago, I took the train up to Chicago. I live about 5 hours downstate. I took the train to go to a niece's bridal shower. And every stop along the way, we had more and more highly caffeinated, very boisterous, very chatty college students. And just about the time that I was about ready to ask if there was a train car for the grumpy old get off my lawn kind of people, I actually fell asleep. But anyway, this is what I thought of when I woke up. So this is called The Mother Heron's Lullaby. This is how you learn the night sky, gazing up at the stars you will steer by. Little straggle heads, all fluff and croaking, just eyes and hunger, such creaky voices, so much flapping that goes nowhere. One day you will draw your long legs up behind you, trawling the air. The stars will carry you miles and years. Look again, little ones, learn them well, for someday you will guide the new souls. Thank you.
So tonight, Al and I are going to take turns introducing our featured poets. I do want to mention that next reading in September. We're going to have Sarah Arvio and Amora Huey, whose name I hope I pronounced correctly. And following that, we have Richard Seekin, who's just had a new book come out, and there are many people who've been anxiously awaiting it, so we will have that. Now let us start with Judy Valente, who has just released, or I should say her last book of poetry is How to Be a Contemplative. She also writes in prose, as you'll hear. She's published 3 collections of poetry in addition to 6 nonfiction books, edited an anthology of poems on finding the sacred in the ordinary. She spent much of her career as a journalist and was a staff writer for the Washington Post and on-air correspondent for PBS and NPR. Mary Oliver selected her chapbook, Inventing an Alphabet, back in 2005, and can't squeeze in all of her other credits. So better still, let's just listen to the poetry. Judy.
Thank you, Nina. Thank you, Al. It's an honor and humbling to be among so many wonderful poets. We've heard so many wonderful words tonight. So thank you for letting me be a part of this. I hope I'm writing poetry as well as John Simons when I'm 90 years old. I'm going to start with the title poem of my new collection, How to Be a Contemplative. I've always loved Wendell Berry's poem, How to Be a Poet. And so this poem, How to Be a Contemplative, sort of pays homage to that. How to be a contemplative. Find a window, sit by it, stare at the flower box of cosmos, the bees that kiss the blooms, and move on. Sit, not just for 2 minutes, but linger there. Waste time. Forget the laundry, the grocery list, the buzzing phone, the writing that waits. Imagine sitting on a shoreline, listening to the endless rumor of the sea. Imagine rising and falling like the tide. Imagine our mistakes are doors. Our successes melt quickly on the tongue. The face you soon will see in the mirror is the face of every person you've ever met. It opens like a book of singular stories, unfolding, encompassing everything, the bee stings, bird song, night sweats, sunrises, discoveries, losses, all of it good, all of it a placeholder for meaning. Then listen for the one word you yearn to hear, the voice that calls you by name, that calls you beloved. I spent 3 months recently in Italy, and I'm going to read a poem that's an August poem. Ferragosto is what they call August 15th in Italy. It's also the feast of the Assumption of the Virgin Mary when she's assumed into heaven. Her whole body is assumed. But on this particular August 15th that I was there, 2 boys, ages 7 and 9, drowned in the Adriatic Sea. And I happened to be there to witness when they were found missing and then when they were pulled from the water. So I felt that I had to write a poem, and I had to write a poem in the voice of one of the brothers. So this is the poem that I wrote for that August 15th, Ferragosto. We thought the water was a blanket we could throw over our heads and pull down again, the sea a bed we could rise from. It was the feast of the Assumption when Mary enters paradise, her body assumed, whole, uncorrupted. The hungry sea consumed my brother and me, fickle in its calm demeanor. We held each other's hands, tumbled into the water's salty mouth. At first, it was exciting, the way our father sometimes rolled us over in his arms. We became fish caught in the rock's toothy jaws, until we separated into a silent blindness. I remembered running between trees, how a soccer ball feels, the scent of my mother's skin, the touch of my father's rough hands. I surrendered to the wordless, undulating movement. Soon my brother and I were floating above the beach. Women we did not know clasped hands to their mouths. Tears ran down their tanned faces. Men I did not recognize made the sign of the cross. And our father held our mother as she bowed and moaned. Then a pair of white gulls left Y-shaped prints on the sand. Then I was alone. Then the birds grew silent. And then another Italy poem. Let's see, how am I doing on time here? Another Italy poem. It's got a few words in it I'll just mention real quickly. Madonna del Carmine was a church that I like to go into sometimes and sit and meditate. Dom Erminio was one of the priests in this small town in Italy that I was staying in. And Maiella is the mountain that I would see from my balcony. And then the poem ends with the word buondì, which is kind of an archaic but sort of sweet way in Italian of saying good day. Instead of saying buongiorno or ciao, which is more common, buondì is another way to say good day. And this is called At Home. And I tried to distill my life in Italy. The woman who owns the weary-looking pizzeria sometimes sings in the piazza, bursts with a dialect I don't understand, her thick black hair streaming behind her. She has few reasons to sing, husband dead at a young age, and raising two small daughters, and only the same old men come as customers. This morning at La Madonna del Carmine, Dom Erminio tells the usual half-dozen regulars in the pews to keep doing good, even if their efforts seem like a droplet. We are both the drop and the ocean, Don Erminio says. In late afternoon, the children run out of the Scuola Elementare, waving their construction paper drawings at parents and grandparents who wait to hug them beside parked cars, as though all the children in the world could be so loved. I know it's not true. Sometimes I walk among the hollyoaks in the piazza, collect seeds that look like wooden beads, arrange them in patterns on my bookshelves. Sometimes it feels as though I am moving through a dream, like the one last night where I was dancing on a Broadway stage. My partner lifted me, swung me around, and we twirled in the air. The church bells sound the hours, remind me this is my life, silent Maiella, its slopes of pines standing at attention, the sweet-smelling sheets flapping over balcony railings, and the flatbed truck that sputters up a hill as its driver, Vincenzo, shouts into a loudspeaker, carciofoli, mandarini, pepperoni, patate. My neighbors appear from behind faded doors. They wave and call to me, buondì. They welcome me home. And, I always thought it was kind of corny to write about your parents. until I heard James Cruz read a poem about his father, and then Angela Alamo O'Donnell read a poem about her mother. And I thought, why not? Why not try a poem about my father, who is kind of a character? So this is a poem called My Father's Down Vest. When I put on the olive green vest my father wore to ward off drafts, I become someone who never exceeded the speed limit. In 40 years of driving a Mack truck, never had an accident. Was philosophically opposed to washing cars, saying, that's what rain's for. I become someone who counseled his volatile daughter, you catch more flies with honey. That there are two things in life to remember. When you're hungry, you eat. When you're tired, you sleep. I become a man who never read Tennessee Williams, but clipped a photo from the Daily News of ice-covered trees, titled it The Glass Menagerie, and taped it to our basement wall. The vest shines in worn spots, is soft and plush, enough emptiness there for the freedom of arms, pockets large enough for a few coins, a handkerchief, some peppermints, rubber bands. When I put on my father's down vest, I become straight like an iris among nettles, releasing a scent of peace, unscathed by surrounding thorns, a singular bloom in an overgrown garden. I think I'll leave it there. And thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judy. Always a pleasure to hear you read. Next is Patrick T. Reardon. Patrick was a Chicago Tribune reporter from 1976 to 2009. He's the author of 7 poetry collections and has been nominated 5 times for a Pushcart Prize. His latest book is Every Marred Thing, A Time in America. Every Marred Thing, I'm sorry. The winner of the 2024 Faulkner Wisdom Prize from the Pirates Alley Faulkner Society of New Orleans. Congratulations, Patrick. He is also the author of The History, the Loop, the L tracks that shaped and saved America. So Patrick is very regular here, and I always see him at readings around town. So Patrick Reardon.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here. My new book, as Al said, is Every Marred Thing, A Time in America, which was kind of, I thought would be out of date by the time the election was over and President Harris was in place, but I was wrong. So it's much more pertinent now than it was then. But I'm not going to read from that. I'm going to read from my book, Darkness on the Face of the Deep. I write a lot of long poems, and it seemed to me that the 10-minute window here gives me a chance to read one long poem. So that's what I'm going to do. And I hope you will let me get away with it. So it's called Angels Are Out Tonight. And for those who are in Chicago or have lived in Chicago, you'll recognize lots of what's of the places I'm talking about. But it's more of a, anyway, you'll figure out what it is, or you won't figure it out. It'll just be whatever it is. So it's called Angels Are Out Tonight. Tonight, the typewriter keys slam rhythm to ease coarse electricity under the skin. The sister of the Sacred Heart pleads alms and sweats under her habit as angels stride thickly east and west on her sidewalk. Angels fly complex patterns over the drunk anesthesiologist and the beautiful child. Angels are out tonight. The boy rocks his body right and left to sleep as angels whisper green forest in his ear without mentioning the future gun, a charity. Angels are out tonight as the fox scouts among the headstones. as the sigh ends in stillness, as brother pain is traded for sister death. Tonight, angels are on the wind like a tune up the sidewalk, like the white paint piers of the elevated, like the ocean of police marching State Street, Newman's Jolly Coppers, the white glove parade. Down the court run fast break angels in the chemistry movement, actions and reactions without finish or start. Angels are out tonight lining the beige nursing home walls, and planless fireflies starscape the orphan shelter lawn. Angels with assumed names mingle the Cubs crowd tonight after a loss and smoke Winston's outside the gay bar and close up shop, lowering the commercial grade roll down stainless steel security door with a thud. Tonight, as the handgun rests, angels are out as ballerinas pirouette the Bible verse along the red brick wall, as the sacristan eats his filet-o-fish, as the lawyer in her sweats stands on the suburban balcony overlooking an industrial park and tries to remember the name of the kindergarten boy who vomited. Angels are out tonight. Angels embrace sorrow tonight, finding storm within the storm. They crowd tables in Taylor Street Trattoria, drinking water and wine and breaking bread before the elbow macaroni arrives, parsleyed, the last supper of the night. Angels run a marathon tonight along Lakeshore Drive. Wearing orange vests, they dig a ditch with loud machines. They sing gospel songs and blues hymns and country and western anthems and ubi caritas. In the sanctuary, a lieutenant kneels. Angels echo in the high church space along the stained glass Annunciation. My soul magnifies, she said. Angels are out tonight. As I walk along Clark Street through the cold night to apologize, angels hide in the space behind the streetlights, and my sister balances the weight of all that has come and all that will happen, and my mother's ashes are harmless, and the aunt who saved my life is willowy and curly blonde still in the backyard with the baby I was. Latter-day angels tonight are out, and bi-coastal angels, and special needs angels, and glass-full angels, Latin Rite angels, strip club angels, handyman angels, service dog angels, the heavenly host in mufti. Tonight, the woman wearing 8 layers of pants and 6 shirts asleep in the tent on the Broadway sidewalk amid metal restaurant tables and chairs is with angels, swinging like the little girl she once was, rising up, swooping down, legs building height, and at the top of her high arc, she lets go and flies up and out into the light, the biblical furnace where all pain is burned off like dross, revealing pure. At the alderman's office, the precinct captain takes the call and dispatches a crew of angels to fill the potholes on a short street outside the ward through inattention or devotion or commotion or obligation or corruption or inspiration or sedation or kindness. Angels are out tonight. The Pope works as a bouncer. The Boston Celtic drives a hack. A poem is written on the alley wall of a downtown hotel in pencil on sooty bricks, never to be read. And angels stir the coffee in every cup on every table in the hotel's rooftop restaurant, and 2 miles away at the homeless refuge, and in the mayor's kitchen, and after the banker has said the rosary, and untouched between lovers, bending toward each other and whispering, unknowing, the secret of breathing. Angels are out tonight. Michael and Gabriel, Uriel and Raphael, the thrones and dominations, the cherubim and seraphim, tonight amble the glittered Andersonville pavement and climb the shadowed Englewood apartment stairs and sit at the edge of dark in the Glenview yard where a man who knows he is dying barbecues for the ones inside, each talk and tick mundane and solemn. Tonight, angels sleep on the red line from Howard to 95th and back and back. Tonight, tri-state tollway motorists barrel through I-pass lanes, avoiding the toll booth angels chanting the daily office. Tonight, angels fall asleep in the ice-white television light. Angels fight on the carpet until mom takes the plastic baby away from them. Angels in the hotel room can't take their clothes off fast enough. Angels are out tonight running around the university track. Each step an eternity, each exhalation another big bang. In the sovereign tap, angels caress their Miller lights and watch Fred Astaire in the royal wedding in between used car commercials. Angels tonight await the second coming. Know they need, know they want, know they have no idea. Feel the high wearing off. Leave a backpack on the platform. Take an extra base. Twitch, stalk, run at the nose. Run on empty. Run to danger. In the silence above the alleys, angels are out tonight as urchin rats, worshipped in India, revered in Rome and China and old Japan, jitter from hole to hole, the voltage circuit. Tonight, early drafts are put through the shredder for no reason but delight at spaghetti paper, a dry meal of textured wonder and portent, a gluten-free repast, an echo of the halls of heaven. Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Wow. You gave us a whole tour of the city there.
Yeah, I'll say. So that is Every Marred Thing, A Time in America. So check that out, and I'm going to imagine that there's a link to it in the chat. Next, we have Terry Lucas, who mentioned earlier tonight that he came to his first Molly's reading back in 2006. So, and we had been going for a few years before that, so that really dates all of us. Terry's the author of 2 prize-winning chapbooks, If They Have Ears to Hear, and Altar Call, in addition to 4 full-length collections, the last of which he'll be reading from tonight, called Everything New and Selected Poems. Everything doesn't leave much out, so we'll get some of that. It's the winner of the 2025 Blue Light Book Award. It's been published all over the place and is currently, is a poet laureate emeritus of Marin County, California, and a freelance poetry coach. So Terry, let's hear what you got.
Thank you so much, Nina. And thank you, Al. Thank you for having me tonight. Thank you, Bill, for being behind the scenes and making this all come out seamlessly. Appreciate that. I would also show you the book, Everything New and Selected Poems, and thank Diane Frank of Blue Light Press for publishing it, and Jim Benton for his artwork on the front. Everything is a sort of an unusual title. One of my proofreaders said, so are we to believe that we're not going to have any more poems from you because this is everything? And I said, no, it's the title poem. I'm not going to read the title poem tonight. So if you don't want to purchase the book, you may find the title poem online. If you go on the Sun Magazine website, it appeared 1.5 years ago in that magazine, and it's recorded on that site. So I'm going to read 5 poems from that book this evening. The first of which is the proem to the entire collection, entitled Suspects. We're gathered here to make these poems talk, grill them under hot lights, long chains swaying bare bulbs above us, shadows washing stains from concrete floors, cracks of gauzy light beneath the locked doors. We're here to lay them out, strip them down to naked lines, slap veins till gorged, pump them full of truth serum, ask 20 questions, get confessions, how bright the blood, how dark the bathwater, how they broke in through the skylight, escaped leaving no tracks in virgin snow, how they were captured, how many hands were laid upon them before they sang. The call. When my father dies, I am 1,000 miles away from his heart, beating both iambic and trochaic at once, syncopated whispers coming through my hands-free earpiece. This thing just shocked me, I hear him tell the night desk nurse, who later described the slow slump, defibrillator dangling from his neck, swaying in blank air. But right now, all I can hear are her feverish steps on linoleum floor, muddy speech of emergency paramedics, cellular silence, and God. There is nowhere to get off this mountain road, each switchback demanding full attention in the moonless night. Later in hotel room, after speaking for the final time with the doctor, I am 10 again, on my knees, stranded on a seal black boulder in the middle of the Animus River, reaching for the out of reach arms of my father. Pick a spot on shore, he says, to focus on. I place one hand on a rock offering itself through the swirling surface. I pause, then push off toward the fog gathered around the dead limbs nodding in shallows, still attached to cottonwoods. Legs pumping, my submerged hands part black water like an orchestra conductor, cutting off the woodwinds at the end of an adagio, air barely moving over humming reeds, a sustained tone with no apparent rhythm, asymptotically arcing its way toward a measureless fermata. Some days I find myself sitting at my desk, 15 minutes without thinking about death or about the sun, the feverish sun hoisting itself up eucalyptus trees outside my window, how its malignancy even now is growing plasma tsunamis, how one day flaming waves will engulf the entire family of squirrels racing along wrinkled bark, dolphins, elephants, bees. Every violin will scream as music melts along with all the crumbled roads, massive missives written from sagging motel beds, golden Gideon Bibles, packages of Trojans, buzzing neon signs, naked candles dancing behind Luminarius's parchment, curled up, shoes in Salvation Army stores. But tonight I simply watch Earth's thin shadow cross the moon, the way a child sitting at a dinner table watches his abused mother's face, half lit, pockmarked scars shining like craters, waiting for the father's eclipse. And now it's sleeting in the streetlights. Ice particles sign through spaces in the spaces before white noise hits cement like tongues against teeth or fists against a world-grain desk. And once again, I find myself thinking not so much about death, but the sound of claws skittering up eucalyptus, fellow fugitives from the star that gave us birth, even now flexing flaring arms to embrace us. I don't speak much between poems as I read. However, the next poem brings to mind a few things. It's entitled Dearborn Street. It's my homage for the evening to Chicago. And what an interesting, wonderful poem from Patrick. Rather Whitman-esque or Ginsbergian, that anaphora of line after line after line. The angels are with us tonight. You'll hear a reference to angels in this poem. This is my Chicago story when I lived in Chicago. And Nina, I actually read it the first time in 2004. I was away in 2006. I'd gone back to California. And it also has in it a reference to 311 South Wacker as the tallest building in the world with only a street address for a name. That's changed now. It's now 432 Park Avenue, New York, New York, which is about 400 feet taller than 311 South Wacker. Dearborn Street, Printers Row, Chicago. I stumbled onto a quivering mound of pigeons, feathered nacre, iridescent, fluffed, holding at bay the grave cold beneath a sky with neither stars nor snow, nor anything not fashioned from steel, concrete, glass. I thought on these birds gathered, this dirt white ground, how my life was above in a 36th floor apartment, estranged, my wife living in the back bedroom, building ceiling-high Lego models of skyscrapers. John Hancock, Sears Tower, 311 South Wacker, tallest building in the world with only an address for its name. Days I didn't see her. Nights I waited in vain, listening for Lake Michigan's wet sand confessions. I peered through my window into nothingness some saw as water. Not even the moon reflected at that angle. And if ever an angel aimed moonlight toward me, it passed through my glass-top desk, capturing nothing, a nothing that had everything to do with us. My companions were a Korg electric piano, king-size bed, and a see-through desk, feeding me enough to stay alive. All I owned in that living room. Closets emptied, suitcases filled, ready for flight. So ready, had my phone rung, someone from my past offering a plane ticket, I would have given away piano, desk, bed, ridden the L to O'Hare by 6 a.m., which in the end I did. But on that night, I wanted to stay forever on Dearborn, spellbound by that pile of pigeons huddled together, burbling their brief triumph. The last poem that I'll read tonight is called The Past. I actually wrote it. This next poem, The Past, is from the new poems of the book. There are about 25 to 30 pages of new poems, maybe 100 pages of poems from my previous 5 collections. I wrote this poem in New Mexico. I decided I wanted to find out what 18 to 21-year-olds were writing. I turned 75 last year. And so I took a graduate poetry workshop, having already received my MFA in teaching college in California. I discovered some interesting things about them and interesting things about my poetry writing. And this is one of the poems that came from that. It's called The Past. When the past comes to you through the cat door as a one-eyed raccoon, scrounging for food at 4 a.m., you lie awake in bed listening to claws whisper along the kitchen floor. Why did she? Why didn't you? Don't feed it or chase it with your ex's broom, and don't ever attempt to embrace the beast. Remember how the past smells, carries disease, leaves muddy tracks, and those claws and teeth have dug up moldy roots and grubs and who knows what out back. Leave it be. It will depart of its own accord if you pay no mind. Tomorrow, buy yourself a present, a new door. You haven't had a cat in years, not since you let it out at dawn in 2010 and a coyote whisked it across the Rainbow Bridge. Listen, the cat flap again. Now silence. Slip out of bed, inch downstairs, get on your knees. Sponge, squeeze, sponge, squeeze. until the smudged tiles begin to shine. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, Terry. I want to, at this point, before I introduce Ricki, I just wanted to acknowledge our audience in YouTube land. So everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us tonight. And I'm sure everyone, even though they can't see you, who's reading appreciates the audience. So thank you. Next up, our fourth feature of the evening is Ricki Cummings. Ricki is a trans writer currently living in Chicago, whose most recent book, The Failure Experiment, was published in March of 2025. She is the author of Confessions from a Drainage Ditch and the chapbooks A Void and Cloudless Sky and Hyper Sigil. I think I said that right. And has been shortlisted for Vallum's Award for Poetry. She received her MFA in poetry from Columbia College in Chicago. So Ricki Cummings, let's hear you.
All right. Hi. Thanks, Al and Bill and Nina and everyone else that's reading and has read and everyone that's visiting. I will be reading from my book. Oh, geez. My book, The Failure Experiment. There it is. There's the cover. Yay. It's available on Amazon and on Bookshop if you're not into supporting, Jeff Bezos's yacht fund. So, wherever you get it's cool. The Failure Experiment is influenced primarily by late 20th century science fiction, specifically Philip K. Dick and cyberpunk from the 80s, but also the poet Jack Spicer, who was once a roommate of Philip K. Dick, which I always found interesting. So it's a serial poem, so the whole book is one poem, which is a format that was championed by Spicer. So the whole thing starts out with a couple of epigrams, one of which I'll share with you from my friend Tasha Bushnell, who passed a couple of years ago after her third bout with breast cancer. So she said, "You cannot give a girl radiation and be surprised when she infects others." And with that, I will start. The indifferentiation of active and passive. I think I am addicted to truth, to a version of you more human. You ask if I'd ever love, and I say, only if she looks like you. But I don't say only if she has your memory of your mother, or only if she chews her lip when she writes, only if she looks like you. The you that still exists when I stop believing in you. No one could explain why the unreal was wrong. Who cares if it's all fake? We're still here. She says to me, "You look misplaced," while I'm talking to Bethany, who just asked if I believe in heaven or the afterlife, which comes during a section of Flow My Tears when Felix is at a gas station, a part where Philip wrote the book of Acts without knowing it. The text used for analysis is called the corpus, from Latin for body. So the question of where is the body is answered on the page. Corpus also gives us the English word corpse, the dead body, the dead text. A study of cadavers that are so well constructed one might never know their reality except through their relation to other corpora. Rachel is an experiment. I think I've lost my stomach for poetry that has heart. I'm up to my eardrums in poems about plumbers, about the everyday experience of making soup. Maybe I spent too long ingesting the sorts of views that most people might call majestic, as if there was something new and special about mountains that can be seen approximately everywhere. Don't get me wrong, I love the way the Garden of the Gods glows in the evening, before the park service turns the lights on, when the sun catches it just so. But a few miles away is a bunker built to withstand a nuclear apocalypse, and sometimes I just can't really focus on a fucking ant. Too many people think Frost's best poem is Stopping by Woods, while Home Burial is right there. Maybe this is how I fail my humanity. My eye twitching nervously, writing yet another poem about my mother. Refragmentation. She says you have the tits of a teenager, and I think of our saints Agatha and Dymphna and how and why they were martyrs. I ask, could you fall in love with yourself from an alternate universe, or is that autogynephilia masquerading as narcissism? I still haven't sorted out my dreams. I mean, the ones that come true later. The mundane ones of eating dinner. The one that ends up being a book I read 10 years later, written 14 years before. The ones about albino fawns. I startle awake when I'm already awake to find my fork in hand and wine in glass, its translucent skin arcing red down the side. This is the part where I step in as the author, me personally, Ricki Cummings, where I step in and say that I am specifically and personally having a bit of a crisis. It goes something like this. The whole world is this whole thing is supposed to be about identity and love in the age of mechanical reproduction. Thing is, I don't actually know anything about self, let alone myself. What worth has love when I can simply be replaced? What worth does this poem have, knowing full well that it's unlikely that more than 24 people will actually buy it, let alone read it? In a poem a few years ago, I seriously added my PayPal to one line. So far, no one has sent me anything. Emily Dickinson spent her entire life gardening and socializing and writing poems, but only 10 of those poems were published in her lifetime. I am, on paper, more accomplished in my lifetime than arguably the greatest American poet, Emily Dickinson. Why is that not enough? Why must there always be more? Outside binary, there is still but one choice, to die or die slowly. I think I wake up in a body I do not recognize as not my own. There is a clicking in my shoulder that always was not always there. The triangle taken out from the circle is still a triangle and still a circle. Put another way, the amount taken out of a whole overfills the whole, but at the same time collapses further into it, given time. Having been removed and replaced and removed and placed again into this not mine body, I remember only breaking, only falling and breaking in every direction within the space occupied by the sound of a keening toad. We must imagine Gregor Samsa happy. That was on a page all by itself. I just felt like doing that. She says, I don't believe you just do that. And I tell her, I've always been here. We've always been here. I ask, what's your mother's maiden name? Who was your first grade teacher? What color green were the trees when you were 2 and riding unrestrained in a truck? What was I thinking on page 36? What has it got in its pockets is? She asks again if I really believe, and I hear Jack say through me, we cannot remember without editing. He didn't really say that, not really, but he also didn't say first thought, best thought. If that were true, all we'd ever say is, what am I doing here? And no matter if our source code is protein or electron, we must believe it best to ask this first. It can't just be lights and leather, can it? Swords and decks? The shock of a dead channel sky. Surely your meat means more than this. Surely there is a metaphor more apt. The only women in Blade Runner are androids. For a time, only one of them is aware. The audience knows right away. Would they know if they weren't told? Philip K. Dick was married 5 times, Ridley Scott 3, and yet the women are artificial, creations of a father, absent a mother entirely. Let me tell you about my mother, only if she looks like you. And then the last part of the book is actually a poem. It's one of the few bits that's actually a formal poem. It's a Petrarchan sonnet, which is sort of ironic when you get to the meat of the thing. So this poem is special for my mother, who claims she doesn't understand my writing. She says she doesn't quite know what to do without a form or specific rhyming. So here's one in a form I first found love. Though I write much more without a framework. With no illusions, this should be enough to show what I can do with some effort. That's a lie. William Shakespeare wrote sonnets in blank verse in a form that seems more like real patterns. Iambic pentameter. It turns out almost any sentence will fit. The thing about it is, the rhymes will sound trite, and programmatic speech won't sound sweeter. And that's why I don't write real poems. Thanks.
Oh my goodness, Ricki. Good job. Good job. How long would you say you were writing that?
The whole book took me about 3 years from like the original spark to actually publishing. So,
Yeah. I'm asking that question because, because I wanted to know, but when we have our regular readings, I have a chance to conduct conversations with the features, and I can't do that tonight. But I have so many questions to ask about all this richness of poetry tonight. Our last poet is Virginia Bell, the author of Lifting Child from the Ground, Turning Around, which is, and also From the Belly, that was on Sibling Rivalry Press. She won Nell Magazine's Nonfiction Prize in 2020 for the personal essay Chicken, and her poetry won honorable mention in the 2019 River Sedge Poetry Prize, judged by Jose Antonio Rodriguez. Bell is co-editor of Rhino Poetry and teaches at Loyola University, Chicago, and DePaul. I'm so delighted to have you here tonight and all the other wonderful features as well, Virginia.
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you for staying. I'm sure you're like, I had to get up and stretch. That's why I turned my camera off for a minute. I had to just stretch, my back was going to get to me. So I really appreciate your hanging in there. It's hard to be a closer after all those tough acts to follow. So thank you for that too. I'm going to just jump in and read one of the poems, and then I'll tell you a little bit about the book and read 2 more poems from it. This poem is called June 24th, 2022. You might remember what happened on that date. As I read the poem, you'll probably get clued in if you haven't already remembered. June 24th, 2022. Tomorrow, I will attend a workshop titled Singing in the Dark Times. Never mind that I tell my class to question the good versus evil binary of light and dark imagery. Insert query here about the Persian origin of the term Manichaean dualism. Never mind that I am now finally post-menopausal, that my children tower like stony obelisks, crowding my path, sharpening their points, or that, like eclipses, they spit fire and ash, burning and cooling in unpredictable orbit. Perfect metaphor eludes me. Never mind that today, what we knew would happen, happened. The overturning, the unvoicing, as if choosing were not a thing. There are days when I wish I had made a different choice. Days when I wish I had made a different choice, a different difference in my children's lives. I write poems like Self-Portrait as Half-Dead Mole Pulling Herself Across the Grass. Or I binge a Danish drama in which the first woman Staatsminister can't manage her own son. How far have we come? In 8th grade, codename Lizzie from Planned Parenthood posed a clear plastic vagina on the teacher's desk, squirted jelly into a rubber cup, folded it like a taco, and slid it up inside. The Staatsminister's son runs away to free a truckload of pigs from slaughter. Disoriented, they martyr their bodies back into the road. It shocked us, too, to see the fillable cavity mirrored on the desk, as if choosing whether, when, and where were all that matters. So, needed to read that. And the book is called Lifting Child from the Ground, Turning Around. That is a line that I stole. That's a caption to a stop motion plate produced by Edward Muybridge near the end of the 19th century. Terry, you might be really familiar with Muybridge, being a Californian. Even if you haven't heard of Muybridge, you've probably seen his most famous plate, which is that black and white collection of like 8 or 12 frames of the horse running. So Muybridge was one of the inventors of stop motion photography that led to the invention of film and motion picture. And his financial patron was Leland Stanford, who was a robber baron and the founder of Stanford University, an early governor of California. And that horse was Stanford's horse and on his ranch. And he was sort of financially making all these experiments in photography possible. There's a really famous story that Stanford and his other wealthy buddies had bets on what you could actually see when you managed to stop motion, because it made us see differently, right? We couldn't see in the same way before then, and we've seen differently ever since. So all that backdrop, just to say that that is an ekphrastic thread that runs throughout the whole collection, even though there are a lot of poems about mothering, parenting, caretaking, and a lot of elegiac poems. But I'm just going to read 2 more tonight, and they are 2 of the poems that really wrestle more directly with the Muybridge stuff. And this one is in the voice of that horse. And her name was Sally Gardner. The Invention of Suspension, Sally Gardner, 1878. I could have told them there is a moment when my 4 hooves are all in the air at once, not like a child's rocker, but as if swimming or conjoined humans running, one in front of the other, an inverted centaur with horse for head. Catch as catch can, but what I know, they, men with cameras, men with cash, know not. What they know, I feel on my back. We see each other as God written, want to take his place or hers. I'm what they call a mare, more muscle than miracle. What they grind and grovel to see and understand, I just do, feigning I am free. And Jamaica Kincaid lives in Muybridge's house in the Bay Area. That is such a surreal, strange tidbit. Okay. So I read Rebecca Solnit's biography of Muybridge, and I did a lot of other research, and I studied the hundreds and hundreds of plates, and references to them run throughout the whole book. But I also became fascinated with Muybridge's wife, a person named Flora. And the only other thing I need to say is that I'm not a historian, right? So I'm mixing research with stuff I made up. I'm not going to tell you which is which. Just give me that poetic license, and here we go. So this is Flora gets to speak. This is Flora's voice. The invention of autobiography. Flora Muybridge, 1850 to 1875. My first last name, Downs, at the mouth of a river gone south, parents drowned. My newfound father, Captain Stump, commanded I handle his steamboat pump, then sold me as Lily Shallcross to the west, girl gold. My third last name, Stone, sunk fast, tied to a toothless man, his name Lucius. Men called him Luce, but me Lucifer, on account of my lip split. My recourse, newly minted, divorce. My last name, Muybridge, meaning I very much wanted to make it up and over, and did. Even got my own nurse when Muybridge knocked me up. Got his fine photographs in a real book. Peculiar pale hooves stuck in the air like boxing fists, dangling angry. All I got to name was that bawling thing, bald, his boy part thin as a finger and purpley red. Florado. I named him after me, like Colorado. I can't go back, but I've been there once. My only real love was theater. Theater, not Larkins, that actor playing an actor who tried to woo me with the tale of his life before the stage, a Siam Raja. But I'm no fool. Who knew a camera could turn gun? Larkins end. Then come after me. Never con a con, spat Muybridge. I had to run. So cold the wind whittled out my lungs. Florado, whatever became of you? And there is a truth in there that's pretty verifiable, which is that Muybridge killed the man he thought his wife was having an affair with. There was a trial, and Muybridge was acquitted on the grounds that he was simply protecting his property. And then Flora was afraid that he was going to come after her, so she abandoned the child and ran away and died of pneumonia in Monterey. So I'm sorry to end the evening on that dour note, but thanks for sticking around and listening. Thank you, Al. Thank you, Nina, for being such incredible hosts of this wonderful Traveling Mollies series, and for the honor of listening to all your poetry tonight.
What a night. What wonderful poetry. Gotta ask you, Virginia, would you read the last line of your last poem?
Sure. The last little section of the invention of autobiography is, I had to run, so cold the wind whittled out my lungs. Florado, whatever became of you?
I just think that last line, whatever became of you, is just, it's something to travel on. In fact, it might be the basis for some great poems to come, not just from you, but from all of us. What a night. Thank you, every one of you. The features, incredible open micers, Bill Harrison behind the scenes, and the audience out there where we can't see them, but imagine that if they've stayed through the evening, that they felt the treat of it all. So next month, second Monday of every month, we will be here next time with Sarah Arvio and Amorik Huey.
And not too much to add, except thank you all for being here. There's a lot of great poetry, and I've been to so many open mics in my life, but it never ceases to amaze me how many good poets there are to hear.
And
So
how many
thank
of
you
them
all.
come to us, Al?
Yes, and we get to hear them right here every second Monday. So anyway, thank you all, and we'll see you next time. We'll be the YouTube video will be at the Traveling Molly's channel, so you can watch it when you have time, and enjoy the rest of your summer.
Aloha, everybody. Aloha. Thank you. Thanks for the kind. Bye-bye.
Good night. Happy birthday, John.
Thank you.
Happy birthday. Bye.